Hey everyone, welcome to Cyber Conversations, the show where it's okay to agree to disagree. Today, Vern and I are continuing our discussion on Star Wars Episode VIII, The Last Jedi. As you have probably heard if you've been listening, and as I have stated before, this is a very big and complex episode. The movie is by far the most controversial, and Vern and I have very different views of it. He and I discussed this before recording, and we wanted everyone to know that even though our conversation is a little more intense than usual, the point of this podcast has always been the same and still remains the same, which is that it is okay to have different points of view. It is okay to agree to disagree, and you can do it in a respectable way. You can do it without name calling. We don't believe in gatekeeping. We both are very passionate about Star Wars, and even though we see things very differently, we never resort to name calling. We never say the other person is not a real fan, and we don't condone that. If you like the original trilogy but not the sequels, you can say you're a real fan, but don't tell the next guy over who does like the sequels that they're not a real fan. Everyone is a real fan. Everyone who says they're a real fan is a real fan. And this show, even though, well, we wanted you to know, even though we do get a little more intense in this conversation, we still ended up coming back to the same place, which is that we are friends. We have a lot of respect for each other, and we agree to disagree about this movie. So, with that, if you haven't, please click like and subscribe, and please enjoy the show. But in any case, the thing that I really wanted to discuss, because this is when it happens, is
Let's get to it.
what people call the Mary Poppins moment. I have no problem with it.
Okay. Of course you don't. There's literally nothing about this movie I have a problem with that you would have a problem with. I don't understand why, but that was stupid on so many levels. I mean, I hate
There
to
were
say that
certain
about
things.
Leia Organa. I really do. It's distasteful for me. I hate to say that about a performance of Carrie Fisher. It's distasteful for me. I hate to say that about Disney. I hate to say that about Star Wars. I can't believe I'm having to say this, but that was stupid on every possible level. And I'm pretty sure 90+% of the audience agrees with me.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I've heard it many times.
But you have no problem with it, so let's hear
I
it.
the only thing I don't like, and I will say this right off the bat, I was unhappy about the fact that in the background, without even, getting a clear shot clear shot of it on screen, we see the death of Admiral Akbar, a legacy character that I
Oh
like.
my God, are you serious? I didn't even realize that. I'm sorry, I'm
Yeah,
learning this just now. Are you serious?
yeah, that was the death of Admiral
That's
Akbar.
that's
That
horrific. I
that
already said in the course of this conversation that Akbar was one of the people that helped rebuild the Republic. So I was not under the impression that he died until you just ruined it for me just now.
well,
So in addition to the stupidity of Leia dying or, floating through space without protection, then Admiral Akbar also bid it on that scene too. That
yeah,
just makes me
I
hate the scene even more.
I do
Not
have a
not have to
problem with
see it.
that.
I have to
So
see it.
I'm not saying that I was completely happy with everything about the scene because I am right off the bat
Oh
stating,
my God, you're right. He's
yeah,
standing right there.
I am
Son of
not
a
I
bitch.
am not that may be the funniest part of this whole discussion.
Oh my God. How could you ruin something that was already ruined for me? You ruined it worse. Man. Now I'm not going to be able to sleep at night.
Um,
Sucks. Listen.
look,
In a
I
parallel universe, damn it, Admiral Akbar is still very much alive. And I'll stand on that till the day of my death.
you should have said that with a little between your breaths.
Anyway, that's
Um,
weak. That was totally unnecessary. He
yeah,
didn't have to be standing right there in the shot.
that was something that bothered me a lot. I was
How did
really
I not
upset.
notice that?
That was
Man.
something that really did upset me about that scene. But everyone else is upset about
Mm.
what Leia does. I couldn't care less. I
Okay.
thought it
Well,
was logical, and I'll get to that. I
I
wanted to
will
state
say
right off the bat, I hated that they killed off Admiral Akbar like that.
I will say
But
live
okay,
in this moment though that and this is a compliment for Ryan. Um, Star Wars, one of the things we've talked about this many times. One of the things that is great about Star Wars is how the depth of detail that is transpiring in the rectangle of the screen the entire time. And so in this case, live, you just saw somebody that is a huge fan of Star Wars learn about a detail that was put in the background of a major scene that I've never even noticed before. And so, to Ryan's credit, I will say, regardless of the fact that it was another awful decision on his part, there is another example of how Star Wars is so dense that you could see it over and over and over. If it's done right, you could see it over and over again and still not see or realize some of the details that are going on in the background while your eyes are supposed to be focused on the main character.
yeah, yeah. So I was very upset that they killed off Admiral Akbar in such a ignominious way, and not even show it, like not even have like for someone like Vern, who is a huge fan of Star Wars, to not even realize it was Admiral Akbar, that sucks. And
I'm
I'm
also
willing
I'm
to,
also a big I'm also a big fan of Admiral Akbar too. You know, I mean, not that I love the fish man or anything. I mean,
yeah,
the art behind the costume is awesome and all that. But I just he's such a good guy. He's all
yeah,
even ever since he was a prince. He's just I am a big fan of people with a strong moral compass,
mhm.
and Akbar was one of those people with a strong moral compass, as well as Leia was. But he unfortunately did not have the force magic that it took to breathe space and not have his eyes sucked out of its socket in the vacuum of space and not freeze to death and float themselves back into the ship. So I assume that means Admiral Akbar in this particular timeline is dead for good.
Well, I wanted to specify because I'm not saying that the scene is flawless. I really dislike that they killed off Admiral Akbar that way. But what Leia does, I thought makes sense. And aside from the fact that, like, she's not breathing. Okay, she's not breathing in space. We know that because she's in a coma when she lands. The only thing that she did was use very simple force pull. And this is what I'm thinking. This is what I saw looking at the screen. Is it looked like she used a force pull to grab the door and pull herself to it. By the time she got to the door, they saw what she was doing. Poe saw what she was doing. They opened the door, so she floated through it and then collapsed because she had been out in space and it had, wrecked her body to the point that she was in a coma. The fact that her eyes don't get sucked out of her head is the same as fire in space. I don't
Well,
care.
yeah. There's a lot of specific details about what would actually happen to the human body if it was nakedly exposed to the vacuum of space that changes radically from one science fiction to another.
Yeah,
There's
I mean,
many ways that it's been depicted, so I'll let that go. I mean,
yeah,
remember in Guardians of the
yeah,
Galaxy when they
Guardians
were
of the
sucking
Galaxy.
those guys? I mean,
Yeah,
that's not very
There's
realistic
Guardians of the
either.
Galaxy. There's Leia's moment, and there's also Total Recall.
Yep,
If you want the
yep.
really gnarly version,
So I'll let that go. I guess what I'm asking is why? Why was this necessary? Is it because Carrie needed to be in a hospital bed and they needed some kind of
I
MacGuffin to
suspect,
put her
yes,
into a hospital bed?
I
Because if
suspect
that's
that's
true,
I suspect
yeah,
that's exactly what it is. They had to get
yeah,
her out of the movie.
I hate to say it, but that probably is true. And I just don't like to see behind the scenes details affect the characters of the story because, as unrealistic as it may sound, in my tiny mind, Carrie Fisher and or Leia Organa are two different people.
Yeah, but
In my tiny mind, Leia Organa is a real person in another galaxy a long time ago, and Carrie Fisher is actually a resident of Los Angeles on Earth today. And I mean, you know
well,
what I
not
mean. But
today. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
yeah.
But my point is like there had to be a more believable, less gruesome way to get her into a hospital bed if that's
I'm
where she needed to
sure.
be in the story.
Yeah,
So
but I
I'm just
guess
wondering how it furthers the story, how it furthers the plot, how it furthers the character. I'm sorry if you can answer those
I
questions, I'm
just
all
feel
ears.
like
But I think maybe
I
the
I
answer is it
can't
doesn't.
I can't necessarily answer it because I'm not Ryan Johnson. I'm just going to guess that it was his way of confirming what we had not seen yet visibly, which was her using the Force. We figured she was going to learn to use the Force because it was established
Man.
that she had the Force, but we never saw her
Oh.
use it really.
Yeah,
In
it's something
You're
that
still upset about Akbar, aren't
we
you?
waited over a generation to see Leia use the Force, and that
Yeah.
is the first time we get to see it. I'm sorry, that's
I'm not
sad.
saying it's the
That's
best thing.
sad.
I'm not saying it's
I
the
wanted to
best
see Leia
idea.
catch a lightsaber in the middle of a duel and actually finish it,
Yeah,
I want to see her jump across a 20-foot,
there are
gap to save a child or something heroic or something.
there are only about a million things I would have liked to see her do more, but
Yeah.
I still think like when people say it's unbelievable because like she shouldn't be that powerful in the Force, I
No, I
the
don't.
thing that
That's
I
not my
thought was
position at all. That's
yeah,
not
I
why
was
I hate
thinking
that
it
scene.
doesn't even look like it's very difficult. It looks like a simple force pull
Yeah.
to pull yourself to the
Well,
door.
but you got to admit, visually, it does look dumb because she's got a robe on, and it just like I get why people think that. I mean, there you have to say something about the optics, not just for Leia. I'm talking about like in general in life. If you're going to do something, especially something unexpected, something that subverts everybody's expectations, then you have to also worry about the optics. If you take a still frame from that scene and you clip it out, like even a serious Star Wars fan has got to be like, what the hell is happening here? It just looks weird. She looks like a monk with a robe. It's not a dress, it's a robe. And she's floating through the vacuum of space without any protection. And I'm not complaining about the unreality of that. I'm complaining about the pointlessness of it and the fact that it has very weird optics that's hard to dismiss.
Well, maybe, but
And the fact that Leia is a beloved character that we waited for years and years and years to see wield the Force, and this is the first time we get to see it. It's not
yeah,
very
I'm
heroic.
like
It's
I said, I'm
all
not
she ever
saying
saves is herself. It would be
like I'm
nice to
saying
see her use her power to save someone else.
yes, I agree. And like I said, I think there were a million ways that they could have done it better, but I
Yeah.
don't have the problem with this scene that everyone else has because I don't find it unbelievable. I don't care about the fact their eyes don't get sucked out of her head. Um,
Uh,
the only
yeah,
thing that
I got to agree.
the only thing I really didn't like was the fact that they killed Admiral Akbar. And that's
Yeah,
it.
well, now I know about that. So yeah, I have a problem with that too. Damn it, Josh, we're on the same page.
So, let's see. If we're moving right along, we can skip that. We talked about Haldo. We got the first lesson of Rey, but we don't really need to talk about that. So now we get to the casino. Um, the casino was, I think the problem with the casino ties all the way back to the fact that I already knew Finn and Rose were on this pointless mission, and now we were following them to this
Yeah.
casino.
A
Like it
lot of people
felt
complain about the whole casino side story being unnecessary. I'm not even sure I really agree with that. It might be unnecessary, but it's fun and it shows another angle of the Star Wars universe.
and it
Um,
carries on a tradition, which is to show, the type of partying that goes on in the Star Wars universe. Almost every movie
Yeah.
has
Well,
something like
but we
that.
always we always see like an underbelly party. We always see like a casino or a dive bar or something like that. One time we get to see an opera, but it's so freaking weird that we don't even really recognize it as an opera.
Yeah,
This is like the upper crust partying,
yeah,
which is something we don't get to see very often outside of
yeah,
Andor. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
So
but I'm not celebrating it. I think one of the reasons why people hate it so much is because, and I just don't even know if we want to approach the subject, but I just think people hate Rose Tico so much. People
yeah,
hate Rose so much that because this is her side story, I think it sort of paints the whole thing as being something that people want to hate. And
I
and
guess
I frankly like I don't even know what to say about that, Josh. If you want to have a conversation about why Rose is a great character or why she's worthy of hatred, I don't even know if I can engage in that because I just don't hate her. I don't
I don't hate
really.
her.
I
I
don't
have no
see her.
problem with her.
I could have suspected that. I should have known that. But I'm just saying, like she just.
Yeah,
I don't. I can't bring myself to hate her or love her because she's kind of an insignificant character and she isn't in and of herself somebody that I find unlikable. Shit, I think she's more likable than Admiral Holdo by
yeah.
far. She's a sweet character, and she even has a very good Star Wars line in what is, in my opinion, a very bad Star Wars moment, and that's where we haven't got there yet. But she
Yeah.
rescues
Finn,
Finn,
yeah.
and then she says, "We're not going to do this by hating what we hate, but by
We
loving what
don't,
we love," which
yeah.
is that's a person with a moral compass. That's a sweethearted character that deserves to be one of the good guys because she's fighting for the right reasons. And so there are plenty of reasons for me to like Rose Tico, but because she's relatively insignificant in the path of the story, I don't she's not really one of the heroes in my mind, but I do not understand the venom for her that's available anywhere you look online.
I don't either. I mean, I have no problem with her as a character. I agree she's not like one of the main heroes. I don't know that she was even like I can't really tell if she was meant to be or if the whole plan was to kind of, make her a side character who never amounts to much because they're just as like these side characters are just as important to the rebellion as our main heroes. I really don't even want to guess, but
Yeah.
I liked her as a character. I like the actress, and I don't forgive anyone who bullied her online or said anything bad about her, like to her face to make her feel bad. She didn't write the
Ugh.
damn character, even
Ugh,
if
that's the worst. I can't, I
yeah,
can't, I can't accept that. I can't forgive that. I mean, that's just straight bullying.
yeah,
When you
even if
when
you
you
don't
hate
like
something, when you hate something fictional so much that you're willing to tear into a real person, especially like anybody who's looking to be an actor who gets a part with Disney and Star Wars, they've arrived. This is their dream. This is their ultimate goal, and they finally get this character. They don't know what they're going to be stuffed into. They don't
yeah,
know what kind of weird green
yeah,
screen they're
you'd
going to
think
have to
that
perform in front of. They're
yeah,
doing what they're told.
these people act like she wrote the character. She had nothing to do with
I think
who
it
Rose was other than getting in front of the camera and acting what was already written on a script. She
this could
followed the
turn
script
into
and,
a more complex sociological commentary, but I think it has to do with the fact that many people suffer from an inability to divide fantasy from reality. I think that some people take Star Wars so religiously that when somebody comes along and doesn't represent it the way they think it should be represented, they want to start a jihad. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And somewhere in the midst of that is where Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best and all these other characters get, hunted for the very thing that they were doing to, first of all, to do their job, second of all, to live their dream, third of all, to take the part of a lifetime. And then, fourth of all, to entertain an audience. And then all of a sudden, they find out the audience has gotten together and lit their torches and grabbed their pitchforks and they're standing on their front lawn. I'm sorry. I have no
there's
patience for
no
that
excuse for it.
whatsoever.
Yeah,
No,
I
no.
was very vocally not happy with Jar Jar when we talked about the Phantom Menace, but I never once sent any hate mail to Ahmed Best. I think he did the best he could with what was written. If I was going to blame anyone for what I don't like about Jar Jar, it's George Lucas who wrote the damn character. It wasn't Ahmed Best. I never
Yeah.
wrote any hate mail toward Jake Lloyd for his portrayal of Anakin. As much as I dislike that movie, well, I didn't dislike it, but as much a problem, we've discussed it already. I
Yep.
didn't like Anakin in that movie, but that wasn't Jake Lloyd's fault, and I never once said anything. I never said anything bad about Moses Ingram, who played Reva in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. In fact, I loved her. I thought she was a great character, but people were making death threats against her because that's the man thing to do.
Who was
Like
Reva?
Reva was one of the antagonists in Obi-Wan Kenobi. She was one of the
Oh,
Inquisitors.
oh, the Inquisitor. The
Yeah.
Inquisitor. Yeah. Yeah.
She got a whole bunch of hate
I haven't
mail.
seen a whole lot of venom about that.
Oh, she got a bunch of hate mail and death
Okay.
threats
I'll just take your word for that.
and Rose Tico too.
Yeah.
Whether you
Well,
dislike the character or love her.
maybe it's the way my brain works, but like I'll say the same thing about Rose and the rest of them that I will say that I already said about Leia. Leia and Carrie are two different people,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
so in my mind, I'm not telling everybody to think like me, but like in my mind, Rose and the actress that played Rose are two different people. So I would never make the distinction between the two. I mean,
Yeah.
I would never confuse the two, is what I meant to say.
Yeah. Anyway, so uh, we've already talked about Canto Bight. Um, And I do want to mention real quick, just as an aside, Canto Bight does come back in Star Wars Outlaws, the game. I thought that was interesting.
Who's Canto Bite?
Canto Bight is the planet where the
Oh, the
casino
Casino
is.
Planet. Right, right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it's called. Okay, okay. I did not know that.
yeah. It was called Canto Bight, and we go back there in Jedi,
Is that
not
is
Jedi.
that
I'm
actually
sorry.
on the screen in the movie? Because I don't recall that. I try to
Well,
pay attention. Star Wars is very dense, but I try to pay
I don't know
attention,
if
and
they
I don't.
said it on screen
Well,
or
that's
if
the
they just
thing, man.
mentioned it. They might have just mentioned the name, but I do know
Yeah,
it was called
maybe,
Canto Bight,
maybe.
and we
I
go
love
back to
how
that.
I love how in the MCU when you get a new when you get a new location, you get these huge blocky letters
Yeah,
that literally cover the entire screen. I'm
yeah.
sorry, that's not very subtle, but I promise you I'm going to remember the name of that planet
Well,
afterwards.
that was one of my favorite things was in uh, Infinity War, where the first time we see the Guardians and it just says space.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's funny, and I think
Yeah,
that I think it works.
yeah,
If you put Canto Bite across the screen bigger than the freaking planet, I'm probably going to remember it because I know how to
yeah.
read. But I'm sorry, I don't remember that location ever popping up in any of the
I don't
TV
think they
shows
say the name or
or
anything. I mean,
or any of
like,
the animated series. Like I've not read it in any of the comic books. I just haven't encountered that anywhere else.
yeah, I'm pretty sure that they don't actually put it in big block letters that it's Canto Bight, but I think they mentioned it when they're coming up with the plan, and I think Maz Kanata is the one who tells them, "Go find this master code breaker. He's on a casino on Canto Bight," or
Okay,
some throwaway line like that.
okay.
That's about
Well,
it.
it's a little piece of Star Wars lore that you knew that I didn't, and now I
Yeah,
do. So thank you.
yeah. So we don't need to talk about the next lesson. There's just more lessons with Luke teaching Rey, and then we've got the escape from Canto Bight. I did like seeing those. They're called fathiers, I think, and they look like
Oh, the
you know what
camel
they
things.
yeah, you know what they actually reminded me of a little bit, not exactly, but a
They
little
look
bit.
like llamas.
They reminded me a little bit of land striders from
Oh yeah,
the
Dark
Dark
Crystal.
Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the
Yeah,
big
a little
long
bit.
legs. Yeah,
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, they were completely CG. So
yeah,
they had beefier legs, but yeah, I could see that relation.
yeah,
I'll also just take a passing moment and comment on Benicio del Toro's character. Weird.
yeah,
Everything Benicio does is weird. So, okay, if you want a weird guy, you got to hire Benicio because he always
yeah,
plays a weird guy. He was great as the collector, for instance. In this
yeah.
case, I feel like, this guy was very cynical and obviously a bad guy. I think it was painfully obvious from frame one. I think it was
Yeah,
painfully obvious this guy was going to betray you.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's not a deal breaker. I'm not
No, I
complaining
didn't have
about
a
that.
problem with that.
I'm not complimenting it either, but it's just a comment.
But something that reminds me is that it still blows my mind that you've never seen Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas because he's in that.
Is that the Johnny Depp movie? Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny Depp and
I'm afraid
Benicio del Toro.
I've seen big pieces of it, but I've never seen it all the way through. Yeah.
He's in it as Dr. Gonzo, I believe is his
Yeah,
name.
he's
And
been in a lot of things.
yeah,
The Del Toro family has a long history with movie making, and some of their movies have been great. They were well anyway, well that's a different conversation.
yeah, yeah. But I still can't believe you haven't seen that because if you like Benicio del Toro, uh,
I didn't say
yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh, you don't like him?
Well, I didn't say that either.
Oh, okay.
I'm just commenting that everything you get him on, he's always
He's always
weird.
a weird.
And I think
Yeah.
that the weirdo in as the collector fit perfectly, but the weirdo as this character, I think probably no offense to Benicio, I feel like that character was miscast. I think this character needed to be something a little bit more calculating, a little bit more, I don't know, maybe his
It
brain was
might have been
blown out
it,
by Star Wars drugs or soming.
yeah,
That's what he
from
comes
death
across
sticks.
as.
Yeah, too
Yeah,
many
too
death
many.
sticks.
Yeah, one too many death sticks. Yeah.
Um, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I think that that is true because part of the whole thing was that they were supposed to get that master code breaker, who they did find, but then they got arrested before they could talk to him. So then Benicio del Toro tells them he's a code breaker, and yeah, maybe if we hadn't seen the master code breaker and if he was acting all smooth and suave, we might have thought maybe this is the Master Codebreaker, and then it turns out he isn't, and it might have been more of a surprise. But you're right. We knew immediately as soon as we saw him, this is not a
Yeah.
guy to be trusted.
Yeah, and then they really didn't, just again going back to storytelling 101. He has one moment where he kind of shines, but they don't really give him a chance to show off why he's this legendary guy that we had to risk our necks to go and get, because he does things that nobody else can do. And also, it's Star Wars. We've already seen lots of cyborgs. A master slicer in the Star Wars universe, don't you think that guy would have had maybe a computer stuck onto the side of his head or something?
Yeah,
I mean, you've got inquisitors with computers stuck on the side of their heads. It's
yeah.
just he's just a guy in a jail cell with a fur coat.
But he
And
isn't the Master Codebreaker because we already know he isn't. We saw the Master Codebreaker. He was at the casino.
yes,
So
but he is the guy that ends up helping them, and so he becomes the guy that we, remember as
yeah,
the end of the quest. The quest was to find the code breaker. This is the guy they found. And
yeah,
he comes across as kind of a Vietnam burnout. He doesn't really
yeah.
come across as anybody capable of fulfilling the mission that they came to find.
But there is something that's interesting about him, though, is that he says he'll do it, but he needs that medallion that belonged to Rose's sister. And of course, Finn is like, no, we're not giving him this. Price is too high, and she gives it to him because she's willing to sacrifice it for the rebellion. And then he uses it to like almost as a jumper cable, and then he gives it back to her. Like I thought that's
Yeah,
interesting because he's a bad
yeah,
guy. We know
yeah,
he's
it
a bad
is.
guy, and he
Yep.
does turn out to be a bad guy. He doesn't subvert our expectations and turn out to be a good guy at the end. He is a bad guy. But in this one scene in the middle of it all, he still does something good. I just find that fascinating.
Yeah, that's true. I think he's kind of he has his moment in Star Wars, which is a significant thing for any actor to be able to say in their resume, but he's just kind of there and gone and
Yeah.
doesn't really make a very profound impact on the story.
Yeah. Well, to that point, he doesn't even return in the ninth movie.
Yeah, right.
Um, Rose, a lot of people think that she didn't have a big impact on this movie, but she does appear in part nine. But that's not true of Benicio del Toro's character.
Rose had a huge impact on this movie, obviously.
Yeah, I
There are a
think so
couple of
too. But
plot points in this movie that would have never happened without her.
no, I agree. I'm just saying some people think she didn't have an impact on the movie, but she did show up
Mm.
in part nine. He did not.
Mm.
Almost everyone who shows up even a little bit in a previous movie shows up in a later one, except for him. He never comes back. Probably because JJ was trying to erase what Ryan Johnson did,
Yeah.
bandaging the mask.
Yeah, man, it's just so weird to see competent, lifelong professionals who are concerned about their resume, who are working for big money people that expect to make big money off their big money investment. It's so weird to see people just vacillate and trade things off and try to fix what they broke. It's like going to a big Broadway production and having like the dancers fumble on the stage and having the janitors come out and like sweep while the dancers are trying to dance. It's embarrassing. You just don't expect that kind of fumbling going on with multi-billion-dollar deals. It's so weird. I
Yeah,
don't know if you see any of that or if you agree in any of that what I just said, but I think that's a general consensus, and that's what it feels like. You yourself just mentioned that, just in passing, like it was just an acceptable fact that JJ came in later and tried to fix what Ryan broke, and it's like it just feels so weird and unprofessional, and
yeah. I
it's
mean,
just
like
you lose the audience.
I have said that many times. Like I am not defending the sequel as being this, uh, masterpiece of a movie. I think it's better than the prequels. That's just me, but I still don't think they had a plan, and I think it's painfully obvious. And I think that it would have been millions of times better if it had had a plan.
I agreed. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
it's also very weird for me to just I know what your opinion is and I accept it. I'm not lambasting or anything, but it's so weird for me to hear you say that somebody who broke the direction that the Star Wars story was going so badly that the person who was hired to make the first movie had to come back and reconstruct what he had broke in order so they could pick up and finish the trilogy, who created a movie that has almost universally turned the fan base against the Disney brand of Star Wars. did a better job on his movie than the original creator of Star Wars did on an entire trilogy. I get it. Your opinion is valid, but it blows my mind. Like I just it's beyond my comprehension how you can think that.
The only thing I go by at the end of the day is how much I
How
enjoy
much
a
I
movie.
enjoyed it. Yeah, I get
Yes.
it. I get it.
And
Yeah.
I enjoyed this movie more than any of the prequels.
Yeah.
I had fun. I had a smile on my face the whole time watching it,
Okay. Yeah, fair
you
enough.
know, except for when Admiral Akbar died. Um,
Did you catch that on the first run?
no, no,
Bullshit.
no,
Okay, okay.
no,
I was gonna say, boy, if you
no. The
caught that on
first
the
run,
first
I
run,
was,
you're really showing me up.
yeah, no, no. I didn't
I think
realize.
I've seen Last Jedi probably half a dozen times, and so that's why I'm just shocked that I never noticed it
I
because after the first showing, I am always studying the background. That's what
mhm,
interests me the most is all those things that's happening that you don't get if you're watching the main character on the screen.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I did notice that even the very first time I saw it, I did notice that there were Mon Calamari on the bridge, but I didn't put two and two together and think this is Admiral Akbar. I just thought it was another Mon Calamari who looked like Admiral Akbar.
Yeah.
Because at the risk of sounding speciesist, I think they all look kind of alike.
Yeah, I think you could be speciesist against a fish man. I think it's probably socially acceptable, at least until we actually discover real fishmen. Then you better clean up your act. You're racist.
Yeah, yeah. So,
So what's
do
next
we need to?
is
Should we talk
uh
about the fact that Kylo Ren and Rey start talking to each other through the Force?
yeah, I wanted to briefly mention that because that is significant because they do sort of almost go down this weird romance. Like I don't I
Well,
it
yeah,
like
they were
you
definitely
can
building it.
actually imagine by the end of the movie the two of them getting together
Oh
based
yeah, my
on
daughter shipped them. My daughter
what?
was my daughter shipped them.
What's that mean?
Shipping means like putting into a relationship. Apparently, that's
Oh,
what the young
oh,
folks say. The
oh,
people who
okay.
are more cool and with it
Oh,
than I am,
the young folks. Okay, yeah.
they call
I'm
it
sorry. Can you
shipping,
spell that word, please?
like shipping, like ships that pass in the night.
S
Relationship,
H I P. Okay, all
yeah,
right, all right.
like a
Shipping. Okay, got it,
relationship. They
got it.
ship
Yeah,
them together. So yeah,
I feel a year younger already.
my daughter told me when we got out of the Last Jedi, she said that she shipped them.
Okay.
So
Well, that romance could have come together in the third movie, but it doesn't. But it
well, it
certainly
sort
does
of
seem like
does.
Ryan is, well, it sort of does, yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
it
actually
almost feels like they're almost like cousins or I don't they're not related, so I don't know why I
no, they're
feel
not
that, but
related. No,
I know,
and
but
in fact,
it just it's
that
an
was actually
awkward it's an
without
awkward coming together, really.
me without meaning to give anything away because we have a far way to go, and this is a different movie completely. But at the end of The Rise of Skywalker, I loved how it ended with the two of them, and my daughter was upset because she wanted them both to live happily ever after together.
That would have been a good ending. I think in it, yeah, that was one way to do it. I love the idea that Kylo was yet another redemption story and that he was going to be redeemed and go from wearing black to wearing white alongside with Rey, and then the two of them could sort of not necessarily rule the galaxy, hopefully, not necessarily take their position as senators, but like disappear together and just live out their lives happily in
I
obscurity
would have been
and let the galaxy sort out its own problems.
I might have been okay with that, but I preferred what we did get because I still am not willing to forgive Kylo Ren his sins. I give him his
Mm,
redemption. He got back to the good side,
which
but
sins?
he, huh?
The murdering dad sin? Which sins
No,
exactly?
all of them. He killed a whole
Well,
bunch of people.
I'm
Just
wondering
like,
what sins you're not willing to forgive Kylo for that you are willing to forgive Anakin for.
no, I'm not forgiving him. I'm also glad that he dies. I am
So you
allowing him.
wish that Vader would have never been reconciled?
No, no, I just said, and I mean this for both Kylo Ren and Anakin. I am
Okay.
okay with them getting the redemption story, but I am not
Okay.
okay with them getting a perfectly happy ending where they go on to live a happy life and get everything they want.
Okay. All right. That
I'm
makes
not,
sense.
yeah, Kylo Ren and Anakin Skywalker both die, and I'm okay with that. I would not be okay if Darth Vader had been saved and got to live the rest of his life with his son and lived in a quiet little place. He's a child murderer and he's a piece of shit, and I don't forgive him for that. I'm glad that he
Yeah,
got
okay.
redemption, but I don't forgive him for killing kids. I don't
Yeah, I get
forgive him
that.
for killing all those people. And the same thing is true with Kylo Ren. I am glad that he got a redemption, but I don't forgive him for killing Han or for killing Ming the Merciless. He's a piece of shit. So, I'm glad that he's redeemed, but he still needs to die.
Yeah, I follow that. There's a good moral compass there. Anakin is rescued in the end, but then dies immediately,
Yeah,
and so like it's almost like so you committed murder and you're going to prison. And we understand that you regret it, you have remorse, you're turning over a new leaf. All those things may be true, and we are a merciful society, so we're gonna go ahead and forgive you. But damn it, you're still going to spend 20 years behind bars because
yeah,
consequences are real.
yeah,
Yeah, so I get that. I get that.
yeah, yeah. So,
So yeah, that happily ever after for Kylo, probably not great. Yeah, I agree.
yeah, yeah.
I love
So I,
redemption stories, but I get your
yeah, and
point very
I'm
strongly on that
perfectly
one.
okay with the redemption that he did get. I was fine with that, but I was glad of what happened. My daughter was pissed because she actually wanted them to like get married, but that's because she was a teenager shipping Adam Driver and probably seeing herself in Rey because she was in love with Adam Driver like every other teenage girl. And we love Daisy
I
Ridley.
just but I can honestly say I don't love what they did with Rey. I feel like I really wanted to get behind Rey. I think we talked about this at the last movie. I really wanted to get behind her. I really wanted to love her. I could have been a bigger fan of Rey than I was of Luke Skywalker if they've done it right. But
I
anyway,
actually really do like Ray, but
they didn't.
that's not much of a surprise. And I mean, aside from the fact that she's Daisy Ridley, I do have a huge crush on Daisy Ridley. But then again, how
Yeah,
many
who
women
doesn't?
are there in Star Wars that I don't have a crush on?
Well, main characters at least. I mean,
Yeah.
even Carrie in her time was
Oh
amazing.
yeah. Carrie is one of the most beautiful women ever. Um, Not the, but pretty close.
Yeah.
And
So the next,
although,
so
well, okay, never mind.
go ahead, go ahead.
No,
I'm
no,
sorry, I'm
no,
trying to
it's
keep
not
us on
important.
track. I'm just keeping
Yeah,
us on track. So
yeah, I was just,
so so the next scene is when we get to the island again, and we see the burning of the Jedi books, which is uh,
yeah. Well,
this.
that I
It's
actually loved
more
it.
Ryan destroying everything that came before him. It's just again, this is another scene where I just see him going, "You like this? You like this? You like this?" And then throwing it on the ground and stomping on it like a bully and going, "What do you got to say now, crybaby? How about
I don't
now?"
know.
I just
I
it's
don't
so
know.
vicious. It's mean. It's cruel. It's totally disrespectful of the lore, in my opinion.
I don't know because even I like what Yoda said, and I mean, first of all, let's just get it out of the way. I loved seeing Yoda again. I really didn't expect it.
Yeah.
I didn't
I
think that.
appreciate the fact that after we've seen him CG for several movies, he's now a puppet again. But
Yeah,
I don't know why. Like we didn't miss him as a puppet. We were already getting used to him as a CG character, so why make it a puppet? Okay. But it's
I
so
don't even.
weird to have him sit there and giggle about the last remnants of the Jedi being destroyed.
He,
I just don't understand how I'm supposed to accept that.
I don't know. I think because of exactly what he said. Like, did you read them all? And Luke's like, "Nah, I skimmed them. They weren't page turners. I mean, Yoda says exactly that in his own backwards way. Page turners, they were not. They're not, it's not about a bunch of dusty old books that no one wants to read. It's about passing on the knowledge. And that's what Luke had been doing without cracking open a
Oh
single one of those
man.
books.
Passing on the knowledge like the way the Aztecs did it before we destroyed their libraries,
I'm not saying
passing on the knowledge like the Native Americans did it and they almost lost their culture because they didn't have it written down anywhere. There is so much disrespect there because passing down the knowledge means writing the shit down. If you don't have it inscribed on the walls of your temple, then it's probably going to burn with your temple.
but
But the
don't you think
reason why we put it in books is so you could pick it up and carry it away and rescue what's left of your culture, your
but
heritage.
But to be honest, I am actually kind of surprised you don't like that because I thought that what he is burning is the way the Jedi did it, which obviously didn't work. because the
He was in
Jedi,
charge of that. Yoda was in charge. I could
yeah, and
listen.
he saw.
Personally, I could care less whether the Jedi books are being burned. I never read any of them. I have no attachment to those. What I have is an attachment to the character of Yoda and seeing him giggle about the fact that all these people that he loved has died, and this entire system that he was the chief master of has been swept away, and now he's seeing the last of it gone, and he's dead. So all that's left is Luke and these books, and now the books are gone, and Luke has given up. So Yoda's just come back from the dead to say, "Man, that's the last of that Jedi crap. Thank goodness that's all gone." That
because
just doesn't make any sense.
because the Jedi failed because the way it was written was wrong. To give up, I mean, I don't know all of the things that were right or
The
wrong about,
Jedi didn't
because
fail; they were
they did fail.
betrayed.
No,
No,
they
I
failed.
disagree.
They failed because, like, the reason that
I
Anakin fell to the
disagree.
dark side was because he had to give up physical attachments. Like, that was wrong of the Jedi.
They did
And,
that for 1,000 years. It
yeah,
was it
and
was countless generations of Jedi that generated all of that lore and passed down what they had learned to the next generation. That's like taking 5,000 years of human history and wadding it up and throwing over your shoulder because your arrogance tells you you know better. And then you embark on this great social experiment, trying something that no one has ever tried on Earth before because you've disrespected everything that's come before you. That is actually a commentary on the real world today. And it's disgusting and it's sickening and it's disconnecting us from everything that means anything. It's disconnecting us from our roots, from things that are tried and tested. And now we're seeing this come to life in this space fantasy. And it's distasteful because Yoda represents everything that the Jedi were, and everything the Jedi were, if you have a good moral compass, is goodness. So Yoda is the last remaining remnant of this goodness that care took the galaxy for 1,000 years, and now he's dead, and his ghost is coming back to giggle over the fact that the last remnant of this history is now finally gone. And it makes no sense at all unless you hate the past, unless you have no connection to the past. And I disagree that if I get married and I have a child, and then 5 years later, I've got a wife and a 5-year-old child, and you come into my house and you rape my wife and you murder me and my children, I disagree that I failed. I succeeded and you took it from me. The Jedi didn't fail. They were robbed. The galaxy didn't fail. It was fooled. It was deceived. It was a victim of evil. And that is my moral compass.
well, maybe it's just that's what I've been hearing a lot lately
I
is
have too,
that.
because we are a people that has lost our moral compass. So I understand why you're hearing that. We don't even know who the good guys are anymore. We don't care who the good guys anymore. We just want to see evil people fight more evil people because we love evil and we're entertained by evil. And I
Well,
think it's a bad social commentary on who we are and where we're going.
that may be, and I agree with you, but I still think that, like, part of it was the fact that the Jedi were sticking with this dogmatic way of doing things, even though things were falling apart around them, and they refused to see it.
They needed a refreshing. And I
Yeah.
think that spanking them and taking away all of their cradle of luxury and causing them to be scattered and figure out how to come back together and realize what they did wrong and rebuild what they did right. I think all of that is a very exciting story. But to be scattered and then come back together and giggle while you burn what's left of it and then stab yourself in the chest so that there's no remnant of what's left. I'm sorry, that is nihilistic. That is pessimistic to the extreme, and it absolutely crucifies everything that we've seen so far. We got 6 movies of Jedis being the good guys, torching the black and red smoking ruins of what the evil faction in this story has done. And then at the end, you're going to say all of that, they were just a bunch of religious fanatics and they should be eradicated from the galaxy. You're now siding with Kylo Ren. You're now siding with Darth Vader. You're now siding with Emperor Palpatine. Yes, they were corrupt and they needed to be destroyed. We hate the Jedi. We don't want any remnant of them. Not only do we want to crush them and take away everything they ever did and and kill every single one of them, but we want to burn what's left of their heritage until there's nothing left. If
I
you are
never
going to say that that is something that you like, then I'm just going to have to sit here and say I disagree with you.
I never said that I think that the Jedi should be destroyed.
Well,
I think
that's what's happening at the moment that Yoda is giggling over the last remnant of the Jedi being burned.
I think
And
that the
I'm not trying to make a mountain out of a molehill. I'm just saying that's why I'm bothered by
I
it.
completely understand your point of view, but I didn't see it as the destruction of the Jedi. I see it as a building of a new Jedi Order.
Well,
One that
I can totally get behind that. Where is it? Where is the new Jedi Order? That's what we came
it's
to these movies to see, but they're not giving us that. They're giving us Yoda giggling at the final destruction of the Jedi. We never get to see the new order being built.
it
Three
is
whole movies go by and we never get to see that.
well, again, I'm not saying that it was done perfectly, but the beginning of the new Jedi Order is Luke teaching Rey and Rey teaching whoever she's going to teach, which is coming according to Disney if it does happen.
Promises, promises. We
Yeah,
had a
yeah, I know.
full
We've talked
freaking
about that.
trilogy to tell that story. So, I mean, maybe someday we'll pull it around, but I hope it's not
I
too
mean,
late.
I know you said that you think that Disney might pull the plug on it, and they might, but right now, as of now, the movie is still greenlit that they are
Yeah,
making a
you know what?
movie.
Okay, you just sort of misquoted me, so I want to clarify. When I say Disney may pull the plug, all I mean is Disney may decide that the damage done is enough for now, and they can't seem to find a crew that can give the fans what they want, so they can cool it for a bit and let everything sort of die down a little bit and still hang on to this cash cow so that at some point in the future, when they have a new crew with a new perspective and a little bit of this animosity has sort of faded into the past, then they can reactivate with a brand new Star Wars story and still be able to cash in on this franchise.
I
And I'm
just
not even predicting that's going to happen. I'm just saying that may be the closest thing that Disney comes to actually pulling the plug, quote unquote.
I thought you meant a couple weeks ago. I think we were talking about it, and I had mentioned that that Disney said they're making a movie where it's about Rey restarting the Jedi Order, and you said you'll believe it when you see it because they've
Yes.
been canceling a bunch of projects, and that
Yes.
might be on the chopping block. And
Oh, okay. So on one hand, we're talking about pulling the plug in general on Star Wars. On the other
yeah,
hand, we're
yeah,
talking about pulling the plug on individual projects. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm just going to stand. I'm not trying to predict anything. I'm not trying to hate on anything or love on anything. I'm just telling you that they've already told us about several projects that we got all excited for, and then they literally, quote unquote, pull the plug on them.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's why me and the rest of the fandom have just gotten to a point where it's like, we'll believe it when we see it.
Yeah, yeah, I completely understand that. But
Sure.
supposedly, according to the news right now, this particular movie is still greenlit, which is Ray and,
Well, but are they
the
in
building.
pre-production yet? Because I haven't heard a peep.
I don't know where it is. I just know
So
that it was
the
greenlit.
project is greenlit across some executive's desk somewhere. Doesn't impress me at all. When they're in pre-production and the investments are starting to be made and the casting is starting to come together, then I'll start to pay attention. And when the trailer comes out, then I'll believe that it's about to hit the theater because many productions get off the ground and millions of dollars get poured into them and they never actually end up on the screen. So I'm going to have to see the trailer before I'm absolutely committed to the fact that this thing is going to happen and start to get excited about it.
Yeah, but I'm looking to see if the movie is still like where it is right
I
now. I
don't
guess
think so. If it is, I haven't heard a peep.
according to Wikipedia, this is an untitled Star Wars film. Um,
Okay, you and I have worked in Hollywood before. You know as well as I do, the first thing you do before you start pulling a project together is give it a working title. That doesn't mean it's the final theatrical release title. It just means you got to have something to put on top of all the paperwork and all the signs and all the cards and like you have to have something to be able to put it under. So if they don't even have a working title for it yet, it hasn't even begun to go into production.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, as I said, I don't know that it's going to happen, but at least as of now, it's still planned.
And
They
depending
haven't.
on how far in the future they put it, it may be strategic to let Daisy grow up a little bit because maybe the Rey that they're projecting in this new story is 20 years older than the Rey that we knew. And for that reason, they would like Daisy to sort of naturally age a decade or more, so they can get that look from her, So
Yeah, that is entirely
maybe.
possible. But
I,
also
unlike the
because
rest of the working world, I am not in a hurry for these things. I think that
no,
they'll be ready when they're ready. And people go, like, I know right now people are complaining a lot about Stranger Things taking too long. And it's like, oh, we had to wait all this time and the kids are all old
oh
people
yeah,
now.
yeah.
It's like, come on,
Yeah,
man.
they wrote it into the story.
Are you really that bored? You're not waiting for anything. You're living your life.
Well, look
You're
at the
living your
people.
life. And when it's ready, it'll be ready.
Yeah, the people who complain about GTA 6 being postponed.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't play video games, Grand Theft Auto 6, which I mean, admittedly, it's been a long wait.
Highly anticipated.
It's been more than 10 years since the fifth
Yeah.
game came out, and now they're
Yeah.
working on the sixth.
Has it
But
really
people
been that long?
complained.
Jeez.
Yeah, but people complained when it got pushed back to next year, and I'm like,
Yeah.
look at like how many games have come out that were not finished, and they're so
Yeah.
happy
Oh
to
yeah,
complain about those
guaranteed.
games. Look at
Guaranteed. If the game
Cyberpunk
comes out too
2077.
soon, everyone will complain about that.
Yeah, they'll
Guaranteed.
lose their minds over the fact that it wasn't ready. But when they say we're going
That's
to
a
take a little
repetitive
extra time,
story.
yeah, but every time they say we're going to push it back a little bit so that we can get it right, they're going to lose their minds about that. It's like
I'm a
people are,
professional artist, and my favorite customers are the ones that recognize that art is worth waiting for. It's not that you're dragging your feet,
yeah,
it's just that haste makes waste. And if you want something good, you gotta give it time. But you're not waiting. Stop pretending that you're sitting on a hill in the lotus position, watching the clock, because you're living your life, and there are plenty of things to do with your life in between these pieces of entertainment, quote unquote. They're just entertainment. Give them time, let the artist paint, and when it comes around, you'll be pleasantly surprised. But if you're pining away, or worse, and I think this is really what drives this, no offense to our beloved content producers, but I think this is what drives this, is that there's so many people whose livelihood is based on their Instagram feed or their YouTube channel or their X account or whatever. And so like they're counting on this new thing to come out. And now you're screwing me because I'm running out of original material. And I was kind of hoping that I could take your new thing and make it my original material. And so now you're screwing me because I got to wait all the way until the end of the year. And I don't know what I'm going to fill my content with. Like I just feel like that's toxic and unfortunate. It's an unfortunate use of what was a free media source. Once upon a time, you had to go through some Hollywood executive to get a camera or a microphone. Now, every single person on earth has a camera and a microphone available to them. And that was great when everybody was just using it to express themselves. But now everybody's got to monetize it. Everybody's content producers making a living on it. And for that reason, the living that they make is based on the AAA game studios or the TV producers, the streaming services, the movie makers, Disney. And so when these people drag their feet, then the people who are the loudest commentators are the ones going, well, I was hoping to be able to capitalize on your profitable IP, and now I can't because you're making me wait. And I just feel like the rest of us normal people, we need to disconnect from that. We got a life to live, and when the entertainment comes around, it'll come around.
yeah. I mean, not for nothing, not to give away too much information about, our personal lives or anything, but I commissioned Vern well over a year ago to put together an art piece for me. And I haven't gotten it yet, but I every single time that I've asked you what the
Oh
status is,
man, put
but
me on blast.
every single time that I've asked you the status of it, you give me an update. You tell me, what's going on and why it's taking so long, and I always tell you the same thing. Take your time. I would rather he take as long as he needs to get it done better than it could ever be than for him to rush it and give me something that I don't like.
Well played, Mr.
I
Ash.
say I say take as long as you want.
Yeah, well, it's worth waiting for, and I think if you love the IP, then there's no reason to get online and start railing against the very people providing you with that IP,
Yeah.
as if they're not performing the way you want them to or going in the direction that I mean, that's kind of what we're doing right now. You
Yeah.
know, we're expressing our opinions about the direction that they're going, you know. But I especially feel like judging something before it comes out and acting like it's the end of the world if it takes 6 months longer than you wanted it to, because you like have nothing better to do with your life until it comes out. I don't know. I think that's a recipe for misery. And I think when you're loud about it on the internet, you're spreading that negativity, you're spreading that misery, and unfortunately, you're doing it in the shadow of something that is supposed to bring joy to people. So
Yeah.
just stop it.
And
That's my
also,
advice.
I
Just
think
stop it.
people have forgotten the fact that, Disney is not obliged to give us anything. The makers of Star Wars are not obligated to give us anything. And they could just say, fuck it, we don't think Star Wars is profitable anymore. We're locking it in a vault. You're not going to see it for 74 years after
Yeah.
George Lucas
Oh yeah.
dies.
It's
And
ours. We'll do what
I
we want
don't,
with it.
yeah. And if they
Yeah.
do that, then, you're screwed. That's it. I don't care how much you love Star
Yeah.
Wars. There's not going to be any more content
Well, take
because
heart.
Disney has locked it away.
Take
And
heart,
and some
because
people,
if I'm right, then that won't make any difference, because we're going to be inundated with Star Wars fan fiction here in the next 5 to 10 years, and there's nothing Disney can do to stop it.
it is entirely possible, but the point is that there is nothing obligating the movie makers from giving us what we call canon. So, I mean, and I know some of these people who hate the sequel trilogy say that's what we need. We need to have Star Wars end and never see the light of day again. But I still think that's a terrible idea.
I
I
don't
love
think
Star
anybody's
Wars.
saying that. I've never heard anybody say that. I think people are saying that Star Wars deserves to take a break so that we can get back to good Star Wars storytelling when Disney has new people with a new vision, and maybe even, let's face it, we're all in the boat together, maybe a new fandom arises hungry for more Star Wars. And a lot of these old sense, like, let's face it, a lot of the whiners on the internet that are complaining a lot, they're going to move on. They're going to die. They're going to get married and have children. They're going to grow up. They're going to have different sentiments. So if you just cool things off for 5 to 10 years, everybody has a different idea, and maybe a fresh new way of approaching the whole thing is exactly the thing that Star Wars needs. I think that's reasonable.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I hope that you've enjoyed the show. We will be returning next week to continue our conversation. Please hit like and subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I hope you've enjoyed the show. Please remember, as always, make tomorrow better than yesterday.